Most days I have some form of recording to do. We'll say today I'm going to make a record with a new artist. It's been brought round to me and I feel has potential. I've auditioned him and he has a different sounding voice.
Come with me, my love, to the sea of love.
Hi, I'm Alan Wilson and I'm an independent record producer.
I love you.
When I was a teenager, I was a fanatical record collector, and I unwittingly had collected a lot of singles which were produced by Joe Meek. For example, the Tornadoes, Telstar, John Layton, Johnny Remember Me. They all had this kind of energy about them. Well, Joe Meek moved to London from Gloucester in the 50s. He got jobs as co-engineers or studio engineers in various studios. After a while, he decided that he wanted to do things for himself, and he became the first ever independent record producer. So Joe Meek basically set up a home studio in the Holloway Road in North London, above a leather goods shop. 50 years ago, recording studios were palatial buildings filled with people with lab coats and clipboards and what have you. Now Joe Meek's home setup was totally different to all that, and he would record bands in his lounge and in his bathroom and various different parts of the house. He recorded David Bowie, Mark Bolan, the list is endless, Rod Stewart. They all knocked on Joe Meek's door looking for their first break, Tom Jones in fact. Joe Meek did have huge success with bands such as the Tornadoes, who were the first UK band to have a #1 single in America. Telstar, their big hit, was a worldwide hit in so many different countries. The Honeycombs, Have I the Right, which sold 6 million copies and was #1 in the mid-60s. Joe Meek was a gifted person with electronics. He would make his own audio boxes. He was very, very keen on reverb. He made one from the spring on his garden gate. Producers and engineers wanted compression to be transparent. In other words, they wanted the effect of compression not to be noticed in the record. Joe Meek didn't do it that way. Joe Meek used it as an effect. He wanted it to be noticed. He desired that thump if you really over compress something. The inner workings of these boxes were a closely guarded secret, and woe betide anyone who tried to sort of unravel the tape and peek inside. The famous Meek temper would flare, and they would regret the day they ever set their hands on a piece of Joe Meek equipment. Well, Joe Meek was one of the pioneers of experimenting in stereo. He recorded what he called a concept album. It's probably one of the first ever concept albums, and it was what he imagined it would be like, on the moon. The record was called I Hear a New World, and it was a stereo fantasy. When stereos first became available for sale, stereo record players, a lot of the shops used I Hear a New World as a demonstration record to demonstrate to the public, what stereo was capable of. It's now a very collectible record. Joe would work in a certain way. Countless stories of him, walking into his office and coming back out and pulling a shotgun on people and really losing his temper, or throwing a tape recorder at someone, and smashing it against the wall or whatever, But I think all that stuff, it just adds to the legend, really. Things like the Mersey beat sound and the kind of the beat movement, Joe struggled, I think, in my opinion, to keep up with all that. Bearing in mind the guy had already been hugely successful at a certain type of music, for 10 years prior to that. So this was towards the end of his career, and as you probably know, his career came to a bit of an untidy end. Well, I think the thing that ended Joe's life was also the same thing that made him successful. I think Joe was an outsider. He wanted to be accepted. He wanted to be successful. He wanted recognition. And that same drive eventually got the better of him, and he ended his life. But I think without that deep-rooted drive, I'm not sure he would have been as successful as he was. "40 years or so after Joe Meek's success, and long after he died, some bright spark realised that, you know, hey, these modifications and this stuff that he cobbled together actually worked really, really well. And despite all the advances in technology, you know, there was a definite sound, a definite excitement that you get with a Joe Meek record that you really still don't get today in modern recordings. And it took someone like Ted Fletcher, who was a one-time assistant of Joe Meek's, to sort of find exactly how Joe had done this in his homemade kind of way. And what he did is he put it together in a professional pro audio unit and marketed it as a Joe Meek compressor or a Joe Meek preamp or equalizer or whatever. You know, several things came out in the range. I like the old school ways of working. The Joe Meek pro audio gear suits me down to the ground, and I thank God the day that Ted Fletcher sort of put them out on the market, really, and I use them every day of my life, and I can't imagine really having a studio that doesn't have a rack full of Joe Meek gear.